Seth, you're getting ready for the July 4th weekend.
The time is upon us, my friend. We made it to from Memorial Day to 4th of July. It's beautiful outside. Looking forward to it. How are you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing well. I always have loved this holiday growing up just because I love fireworks. Just to put it simply enough, it's a day of fireworks. And I think it also is in the summer. There's no school. So it's just a really happy holiday. And I don't know if that was the same for you. Or it was hot and humid out in the East Coast.
Yeah, this is definitely the number one holiday for pyromaniacs. So that checks out completely. But yeah, same thing with me. I mean, it's barbecues, it's s'mores for whatever reason that really sticks in my head.
Oh, yeah.
Big family gatherings. So not this year as much. Well, we're gonna probably stay local, but yeah, man, it feels like I know June 21st, the equinox, whatever, but this truly feels like the start of summer to me. The 4th of July to Labor Day is the sweet spot. And so looking forward to taking advantage.
Definitely, definitely. And what would you say is your has been, it's just in the past 5 or so years, has been your most American moment that you can remember?
Well, I was just thinking, we were just joking about it before we got on. I almost feel like this year it might have been going to see Top Gun and just having people so
that's
into
right.
it.
Like a good American.
Yeah, it's not like overly, I mean, of course it is a little bit, but it's not over the top, America kind of thing. But it's that was fun, and it sort of got me, it felt like kind of from a bygone era, both as a movie and as like a US military thing, whatever. But that was what I would say for this year. There's been maybe some low points in America this year, but that one felt like a kind of a good, fun, innocent throwback.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's almost like when you watch Independence Day, if you remember, saw that movie, and all the military dudes are high five, and it's super Americana. For me, it had to be, and you remember my lovely ex-girlfriend Shion, and Shion, if you're listening, hello. But I cooked hot dogs for her and all of her friends who were from mainland China. And I did hot dogs. I did with the yellow mustard, Coors beer, chips, the whole thing. And they started to eat it with a knife and fork. And I was like, no way, guys, we're doing this
not how we do
American
it
style. That was my favorite. And I put on some American music. And tonight's episode, we're talking about American songs for the July 4th weekend, which is just a fabulous weekend. We're going to combine it with some great songs. And there's a history of music and, you could say, patriotism or nationalism or whatever you want to call it. I love my country songs. And Seth, what are some that you've seen that are just so kind of just blatantly, hey man, we love America?
yeah, I mean, I think of all, like I was going through this today, I was looking, as you can imagine, there are many playlists on Spotify and elsewhere that just kind of lay out like 4th of July soundtrack, whatever. Um, Very obvious that it dovetails beautifully with the country music genre. I think you would agree with that. There's a lot of songs that's just, it's it's inherently an American genre in the way people talk about stories, and then add in the military and the flag and all that stuff. And so I think, there was a bunch of those types of songs that popped up, literally most of them with America in the name somewhere, or, United States or blah, blah, blah. So there's many of them. I mean, Toby Keith's got about 78 of them. And those are the ones that really drove me nuts. But
do you think he likes America? What do you think his feelings are? Do you think he's going to renounce his citizenship?
I think it's very important for him to have everybody else think that he loves America the most. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually just listening to one before I got on. It was a song called Happy Birthday, America. If you've got 5 minutes and you want to go be disgusted with yourself, go give that little ditty a listen. I would say it's pretty horrible.
I'll say this: the most American thing I've seen, whether you're writing songs for America or you're writing songs against America, the one most American thing is you're going to make some profit.
Yes. The most American thing, I would argue, actually.
Hey man, we're here to make some money. The free market. No, it's all good. And again, we're not a political show. We're not judging anything. We just really wanted to show, hey, when we're talking about songs, there's songs for and there's songs against. And there's been a lot of, as you alluded to, Seth, misunderstood songs or songs people are playing like, hey man, this is this is a song I love, and you're like, dude, that's actually not pro America.
Yeah, that's I think it's kind of funny you said that, because there are songs that we'll talk about that are kind of pro America, or however you want to frame it, and songs that are sort of anti-America, or at least critical, and they often get bucketed together. Like these are all, these are on the same playlist, these are playing at the same parties, and it's like the base low level requirement is just that they like say the word America or allude to it, and it's a consistent theme across a bunch of decades and across a bunch of songs, that people aren't exactly digging into the lyrics very deeply, because if they were, they probably wouldn't end up on a 4th of July playlist. So that was a very kind of funny / surprising trend I think we both identified, that these with songs with very different sentiments tend to kind of live in the same bucket. And we'll dig into that a little more, I think.
It's the master algorithm, right? They take the word America and they just bucket it in there, and next thing you know, you're with your buddies out in Texas, and you're playing an anti-American song.
Totally.
And everyone's cheering.
It's funny. Yeah, it's like people, their antennas go up when they hear it, and then they're like, oh, this song is sort of like musically really fun and good or whatever. Yeah. And it feels like, well, I don't want to say too much and ruin our lists, but it kind of gives you that feeling until you listen to 10 seconds of the lyrics. And it's like, I don't know how so many people have missed it, but it seems like the unlock is say America, put it in the name, and I will listen to it, and I probably won't even be particularly judgmental about it. So, yeah.
Well, let's go into the pro America, or, kind of this traditional patriotic
we'll call it our America bucket.
America. Yeah. If I'm going to put on the radio and I want to hear some good American songs that celebrate this wonderful country, what are some that come to mind, Seth, or some generally noted ones?
Yeah, so I think the kind of on the ironically on the Mount Rushmore of patriotism songs, it's God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood. Now this is one, I think it came out. Do you remember, Scott? Is it late 80s, early 90s? I know it from being a little kid, but do you know kind of the history of this song actually?
I remember it. If I had to guess, it'd be the late 80s. Yeah, it was definitely in that time period. It was definitely not a 70s or early 80s song.
And I think it kind of gained a lot of traction and became sort of the de facto or unofficial national anthem, or whatever you want to call it, in like the first Gulf War, like 92, 93. Mm-hmm. It was like people, they would play it at the 7th inning stretch of baseball games instead of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Like it really kind of became ingrained into especially sporting events too. Like we can get into that kind of subset of how these songs have woven themselves into like athletics. But I think God Bless the USA is like the most no frills. Like it's just, I'm proud to be an American, and go troops and go everything. And it's like, there's no nuance to it.
Yeah.
It's an okay song. It's catchy. I think Lee Greenwood's politics are questionable at this point in his career, but no doubt that this song has been impactful and powerful and sort of being the most straight down the middle, like I love America, no bones about it kind of song.
Yeah, it was brilliant in its simplicity. I thought it was a beautiful song. I listen, I don't know if the dude really likes America or he likes the money from it. I'm going to assume he really believes that. I felt when I saw him singing and whatnot, and he was very consistent in his love for America. And I thought it was, hey man, if you're going to write it, just do it like that. There's no bones about it. Like this dude talks about freedom, talks about God, like God chose, like, hey man, I'm going to bless America. Not saying he won't bless Mexico, but he's definitely going to bless America. Maybe he could have thrown in another country in there just to spread some of the love. But
Lee Greenwood is a man with a lot of airbrushed jean jackets with American flags on them. He's committed to a very specific aesthetic. I've never seen him without one. So
there were some amazing versions of those 80s leather jackets you would see on like in Living Color. The dude was rocking them with pleated jeans,
black sleeves, white body, pleated jeans, spray painted American flag. I mean, he's got it's an aesthetic. It is a look, and it's kind of coming back actually. Like
dude, I loved it. Yeah. I thought it was brilliant. It was very authentic to it. Oh, and I think that's one of the ones I had on my list too. That was just a super patriotic. I love America, but there's a lot that actually are not as direct, but that most people would associate with, kind of just a great, not American song, like from an American artist, but kind of like describing America. And I put some on my list, but there's some that are kind of just generally accepted. If you want me to go through those,
Yeah.
throw it out.
Well, I know one that you would put on your list that I think is a really good one in terms of sort of like storytelling is the song America by Simon and Garfunkel. And it's like I think you explained it well in your thoughts of like more of a concept than flag waving. It's not an in your face American song in the way that God Bless the USA is, but I think it does a good job of like wrapping up and the experience and the feeling of kind of crossing America, experiencing different cities, experiencing different people. And that to me is almost like more patriotic of like, let's celebrate the diversity of this country and the different places and the different things you can see, and kind of how people are trying to find their own American dream in a lot of different ways. So that I think that song is a lot more powerful than some of the more straightforward ones on our list. And I'm glad you added it because I don't know that I would have thought of it that way, but you totally hit the nail on the head with it.
When I first heard the song, I think I saw it on a track list, and you wouldn't expect Simon and Garfunkel to have this, especially coming from the late '60s and whatnot. This like nationalism, but exactly, it's more of a philosophy about uncharted territories, like the dream, this idea of discovering this promise of America, which for so many people, especially those guys being from New York, that so many people came over with this dream. And I think that's why so many people are talk about this idea of America as a concept versus just geographics.
Totally. And I think, in the song, kind of the hook is, I've come to look for America, right? It's this idea where it's not a place, it's more of an idea. It's more of it's not tactile. It's something you kind of need to find for yourself. And in people's America, your America is very different than mine. It explores those concepts in a way that is very poetic. And like I said, isn't like nationalistic, but more like a recognizing the America in the way that it was meant to be, which is like all people are welcome and all people are trying to find their way. So I'm a fan of that one.
Definitely. It wouldn't be you wouldn't tell your buddies at the fraternity on a Saturday to bump that one up at a July 4th barbecue.
That's a good throw on the headphones and cry a little bit kind of song, but it's good. Getting your feelings.
So, that one, I thought it was a very, very almost like intellectual interpretation of America, but there's some others that I found that were not as straightforward, like in like Lee Greenwood's, but very powerful. And they didn't even mention America per se, but like Country Roads, Take Me Home, Take My Country Roads by John Denver in 1971, which I've seen so many people of different nationalities at weddings and whatnot sing this song. And even though they mentioned West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, this kind of Appalachia, to me, it's been a de facto song about America. Because if I don't know if you agree with that, I put it as an American song.
No, I think that's insightful. And I think it's all about sort of like coming home and having somewhere to go. Yeah, I love that one. And I love that we're expanding the definition of it a little bit, because if it's all these super like, very just, if you got to say the word, you got to say United States, you got to talk about one nation under God, blah, blah, blah. It narrows it a little bit. And it kind of it almost feels like it brings the most cynical versions of those songs to the top. And so the fact that we're kind of going a little broader and saying like, he's talking about going home to his home. And actually it's the western part of Virginia, not West Virginia, the state.
Oh,
Brian, very nicely. Little nugget for you.
Dude, that's a great ad. It was not about West Virginia. Sad.
Yes. The western part of Virginia. So, but anyway, just kind of, once again, paints a picture of driving and seeing the country and the different colors and the different, all of those things, I think, captures the spirit of the country in a way that a lot of these more straightforward songs just don't and can't.
Definitely. Now, going to the other side, and not to be negative here, we just want to show songs. Some people aren't very happy with America, or they want to at least make a statement using the freedom of expression, which is a big part of America. One that I remember growing up was American Woman by the Guess Who, which as a kid, it doesn't take a lot to interpret American Woman, Stay Away From Me. I was like, well, is she unattractive? As a kid, I didn't know what it meant. Like why did he want to be around an American woman? But it is I don't know if you describe it as an anti-American song, but it's definitely not in favor of America.
And I will say this: I think the important thing to remember about this song is it's by the Guess Who are Canadian. So,
Oh no.
yeah. Well, no, I think that's where that perspective is coming from. I don't need your war machines. I don't need your ghetto scenes. It's kind of like someone have you ever spoken? I'm sure you have, Scott. You've traveled all over the world, but you kind of get someone's opinion about America, and it's often something really small like that. It's like, oh, you have like, you have tons of gun violence and you have this and that. And it's almost like that's what the song felt like to me.
Yeah.
It's like a dismissal of like, America is actually a bad place. And this is like the 70s when, it's so I think taking it as like, oh, this is an outsider's view of a distilled down version of like the bad America.
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually makes a lot of sense when you have that context with the song, right?
It does. There was an image problem that America had about being a warmonger and whatnot. But I listen, that's a great thing about America or just music in general. People can express themselves, and I'm sure the Guess Who made a ton of money off that song, but it probably came from an authentic place. I know a lot of people were at that time against the Vietnam War, and they wanted to express that. So, and we had dabbled a little bit at with Jimi Hendrix' "Star-Spangled Banner." It could go either way, right? Some people found it disrespectful, other people found it very respectful, artistically.
There might be more on this, Scott, but like, what was your interpretation of that? Did you feel like it was, I'm just going to do, I'm going to do the national anthem. I'm going to make it cool. I'm going to make it my own. Did you think it was intentionally subversive of just like, I'm going to take this thing that's, very American and sort of twist it? Like what was your, and we weren't there live, so it's hard to obviously, or even like contemporaneously to get in his head.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like what your impression of the, Jimi Hendrix's version of the Star-Spangled Banner sort of meant. Was he trying to make a statement, or was it just like, check out this cool thing I can do because I'm an incredible guitar player?
I have always thought that he was paying respect to the United States. He had all different songs to do, and he could have done anything, but he chose this song. And I thought it was a beautiful interpretation, a modern interpretation of an old song. And I remember watching Woodstock, and if you can remember, so many of those hippies that could be seen as anti-America, whatnot, were wearing the American flag, different versions of that. And I've always thought America is the anti-establishment. Having lived and spent so many years in England, they were the empire, and we were these anti-establishment. We didn't want to play by the rules. And so I've always thought that's really the spirit of America. And so when we become too much of an establishment and people start to rebel against it, you're like, hey man, that's kind of what we're about. We're against the power structure, if you will. Now, there's debates on if it was just white dudes who didn't want to pay taxes or whatnot. But again, that's not D-side stories. I think your question, though, that I found that paying respect to America through songs is beautiful. And some songs that we could get into, like Woody Guthrie, the precursor to Bob Dylan, the pioneer of folk music, wrote the song, "This land is your land, this land is my land," which for many people, when I went to Disneyland as a kid, that's the song they play. It's almost in replace of the national anthem. Yet it was a song against Irving Berlin's song about God Bless America, that he found to be kind of jingoistic, just too nationalistic, and saying, hey, this land is your land, this land is my land, is essentially not socialism, but it's, you could almost say communism, but the idea of private property. He was really bummed out by seeing this private property. So a very creative way to say that, it's like, hey, this is yours, this is mine, almost a Native American way of looking at possession. But it's a beautiful song, and so many people sing it with pride about America. So I find that actually very interesting, where it can go either way and people are singing it with different intentions.
Totally. And I think if you just listen to like the hook or the chorus, that would be your takeaway. But I think it's also a song, I forget what the final one, but like the full song has like 10 verses or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like as they progress, they get more cynical, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's, once again, if you just heard that hook, that little, from California to New York, like that little part, That would be my takeaway too.
Yeah.
But it is his perspective on kind of what he's seeing across the country, good and bad. And I agree with you. That's one with like even a sliver of being thoughtful and trying to like listen to the lyrics a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's very quickly kind of not what it seems, but it's a beautiful song, and it ultimately is a pro-America, but it's more like, let's preserve the thing that makes America really good,
Yeah.
rather than kind of trump up this thing that, pardon my use of words, but it's like, then kind of hold it up as like holier than thou. It's like, well, no, let's just appreciate and share the good things that this country's about.
Definitely.
And not screw it up. Yeah.
And as we look at our picks, we go kind of the next part here and talking about songs that we personally like. If you don't mind, Seth, I'd like to start with one that I've always enjoyed, that I would play to people in different countries. If I was going to pick, if I was the DJ and I wanted to say, I'll play an American song, I would play Dancing in the Street by Martha and the Vandellas, or the Van Halen version, or even the Mick Jagger, David Bowie version. That's on rare occasions.
Oh, yes.
Very rare.
But only when you want to watch the accompanying music video. That's maybe the most like, it's the weirdest video I've ever seen. It's like, I wouldn't even call it homoerotic. It's like two 12-year-olds who are kind of like never learned to dance. Like, let's dance together. It's such a weird video, but go watch it if you haven't seen it.
But the idea of hearing, for example, the Grateful Dead do a great version of it. Van Halen, you have Martha Vandellas, who are African American. This idea of dancing, which is just a very loving act. There's no harm in it, from all the different cities. Detroit, New York, Chicago, everywhere. And so I thought it was it almost reminded me of the song Feliz Navidad. It had a global appeal, how it was kind of, you saying this land is your land. I like songs like that don't tend to kind of have such a alienation or holier than thou, songs that include everyone. And even in the song, they say across the nation and across the world, everything. So that's my one. I don't know if you like also, that one, or if you're dancing to that.
I like it a lot. It's also, I'm realizing I'm laughing to myself. It's also a great bit to just like shout out a bunch of cities, so that way when you play in those cities, people like cheer for their part. I always thought, the song Heart of Rock and Roll by Huey Lewis and the News. Same thing. It's like, we're just gonna name like 40 cities, so eventually we'll probably hit yours, and that means you'll like the song. So this is like a prototype version of that, it feels like. Yeah.
What about you, Seth? What's on your list?
I put a few here. One I put was in this I would call kind of not anti-American, but anti-Vietnam. The song "Fortunate Son" by Creedence, CCR. This is one that kind of pops up in a lot of war movies, and a lot like there's something very like it's kind of associated with Vietnam, but it's actually very anti-Vietnam. It's sort of almost like, I'm one of the lucky ones who's can kind of get out of this and be rich. But then again, that hook is very like, talking about hail to the chief and things like that. It's a little bit subversive, and it's a little bit down on America, yet it gets used in a lot of like, movies where you see the helicopters flying overhead. The sound betrays the lyrics a little bit, or the lyrics betray the sound. But I think that's just an amazing 70s rock song that kind of has something to say.
Yeah, the lyrics are quite powerful when you listen to them, about privilege and having money, and then when the taxpayer comes, your house looks like a rummage sale. I mean, tax evasion, these kids that are bleeding red, white, and blue, like over patriotism or this. But yet CCR was a very down home band. A lot of people thought they were from the South. They weren't these they didn't look like the hippies from San Francisco. And so I thought it was an interesting blend of like, who's American or not. And these guys were like, hey man, we're an American band. We just have an opinion about being a senator's son. We're not a fortunate one, which is, it's pretty much true. Look at the people that went to Vietnam. They probably weren't the, dad.
The senator's son. Yeah.
But dad.
Braden Puddington the fourth. Yeah.
I'm at crew practice.
But it's also interesting though that you brought that up, and I didn't think of it before. This idea where CCR kind of their sound is like Southern rock or whatever you want to call it, but they're a California band, and it almost seems like they melded that in this song of like, we have the sound and the sensibility of a Southern rock, or the sound of a Southern rock band, but the sensibilities of a Northern California, maybe like a little bit more progressive, like
Yeah.
feelings about the war, right? It like those two sides, it almost like gives away their true colors of being this like California band, even though they're not from the South at all. So yeah, a kind of a contrast in the same way that the band in themselves are a contrast. So good choice. Good choice by me. I chose.
Yeah, Seth, amazing choice, buddy.
Nailed
and
it,
all
buddy.
those movies from Apocalypse Now to Forrest Gump, they all have a man. It is the soundtrack to a Vietnamese war scene. Vietnam war scene.
Yep.
One that I didn't have on my list, but I thought about, Seth. This is live, everyone. This is impromptu. Is Leonard Skinner's "Sweet Home Alabama"? Right, a song pays homage to Alabama. These guys were actually from Jacksonville, Florida, but that feeling, I believe, for a large part of the population was it's kind of de facto America. Instead of the Confederate flag, now they're waving American flags when that song comes on. Now, again, I'm not saying for every American, but I find it ironic that the lyrics, and when they talk about the governor in Montgomery, they go boo hoo, because he was very pro segregation and Leonard Skinner was very anti-segregation. So most people, you could see a lot of Southerners or maybe kind of that old South waving the flag, but this is similar to Born in the USA. Actually, the guys from Leonard Skinner, long hair, hippie, definitely more akin to San Francisco than to Jacksonville or Alabama. But again, American in that contrast, I'd say.
Yeah, it seems like most of our favorites here, Scott, and maybe in most of the best versions of these are songs that are not explicitly anti-American, but have something to say about America. Good, kind of the good and the bad, the contrast, kind of like thoughtful, insightful things. And obviously those are the ones that resonate with us versus just like, we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way, which is a very different song.
Yeah, so. I think that's a great point, because like any country has their pluses and minuses. And Seth, I've been fortunate to live in many different countries, and I am the biggest proponent of America. And a lot of people badmouth it. And I go, hey man, like, it's an amazing place. And we had and I'm not going to go on a soapbox here, but what I'm saying is that you have a song like American Idiot by Green Day, which I didn't like. I thought it was almost just you have Lee Greenwood's like God in America, and this is American Idiot. I thought it was simplistic, like
little heavy-handed.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you don't like America, yet you've raped the system to make yourself millions of dollars. And then you can go back and say like, oh, I hate it, man. And I heard Billy Joe Armstrong wants to move to the UK because of the abortion. And listen, everyone has the right to do it, but I think it's that imbalance. I like songs, as you said, Seth, that show like, hey, listen, America is an amazing place, but it's not perfect. And we have the freedom to talk about these imperfections in the hope of making them better. And I thought a band like Leonard Skinner was just brilliant, right? You have a Confederate flag, yet they're singing about like the bad part of segregation. That's just kind of cool.
No, I agree. I think one of the core values of the country, right, is like your ability to be critical of things that are inequitable, or is that the right word? Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But so like I said, I think that's why those songs resonate with us. Are the ones that sort of, it's not saying it's the best place in the world and unbeatable, and it's not shitting on America. It's just sort of like, this is a great place. We want to keep it that way. And here's kind of our perspective on what makes it great and how we can, the things that we need to be better at to keep it that way. That's what it feels like is most resonant and most American, frankly.
Exactly. And one that talks about one of your favorites, or I think it was your dad's or your mom's favorite, Neil Diamond, America from 1981.
Oh yeah, that was on Hot August Night too. It just got played a lot of
which
times.
is about the immigrant experience. I'm coming to America.
Which is the experience, I think, of, if not Neil Diamond, his parents, right? They were like Jewish immigrants, and that's a very real story. And that's actually a good example of kind of like the promise of America and the hope of like the American dream. And it doesn't mean you'll get there, but opportunity is out there for you. And I think at the core, that is like what the country's about. And that's why I think that song resonates with so many people.
Exactly. America truly is a nation built on immigrants. And we had the Native Americans who eventually came from somewhere else, like way, way, way back in the Stone Age. And so if you look at it as a whole, it's quite a beautiful song. And I think now, especially when you have the world's changing, technology has made so we're all kind of grouped together, and there's fights and here and there. I thought that song still reminds us that, hey, man, your parents came from somewhere where they weren't the empire. You know, you have the Scottish who were colonized by the English, or the Irish who were colonized by, you know, the English as well. English had everyone. Mexico, you had Spain, and so Spain was conquered by France. And so I think it's a really positive song that I love to play, because it's like, yeah, man, my mom came up from Mexico, and you know, she had to hop the wall. She's all right.
She's coming to America.
And I tell her, so I'm so happy she, you know, came to America, so I could be born here. Well, Seth, this is it's Thursday. The weekend's just about to start. What are you going to play? Just tell me a song that we're going to, when this weekend's happening, what's going to go on Seth's place?
I feel like it comes up every couple of weeks on this podcast, but the song that will be on repeat in the Martineau household here is definitely "Party in the USA" by Miley Cyrus. I make no apologies. The most American of Americans. Hail to the chief, Miley Cyrus.
Man,
how about you?
Oh, now that we're doing video casts, I think our viewing audience is going to demand some footage or some clips. That shadows, Seth. You can use any type of CGI, but you got to do it.
Sign up for our Patreon account, $10 a month, and you'll get videos of me dancing to "Party in the USA." So it's going to cost you.
I do have a tradition every July 4th. I play Pink Houses, John Cougar Mellencamp. I just listen, you know, living abroad and all that. When I would miss America, I put that song on. It is to me the most American song. I just love it.
And another picture painter, right? You can sort of see all the things that you probably love and miss about the country you're from, right? That's totally legitimate and a good song.
It truly is. We're not from the Midwest, but we're living here. And the lyrics of, you know, America, you and me, something to see, baby. You know, it's home of the free. It's just beautiful. And the video is exquisite. It is truly a work of art. It shows people of different races, different classes. And I believe that is the beauty of America. So how does that sound? Should I get off my soapbox now?
No, it's a great note to wrap us up on, though. I think that's a good way to say it.
Well, listen, everyone, happy July 4th. We hope you celebrate. We know what Seth's going to be doing, so just envision in your head. I'll try to squeeze in some clips, and we'll see you next week.
Sometimes, once in a while, I'm proud to be an American.
There you go.
Have a good weekend, Scott.
Okay, see you, man. See you, Seth.